Adnan Syed not considered a danger to the public. For that reason and others, a judge ruled to reduce his sentence for the murder of Hae Min Lee. Although this brings an end to a years-long legal battle, it does not erase his conviction. Hi everyone, I'm Jason Newton. Welcome to 11 TV Hill. The case centered in Baltimore County, but a podcast brought Adnan Syed's story to national attention. This past week, Syed learned that he will remain a free man. A judge ruled in favor of reducing his sentence under the Juvenile Restoration Act. He'll be sentenced to time served plus 5 years probation. However, his conviction for the 1999 murder of his then-girlfriend Hae Min Lee will still stand. The judge's decision brings a close to a back-and-forth legal battle going back most recently to 2022. That's when then Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby decided to vacate Syed's conviction. Legal challenges from the Lee family led to the reinstatement of that conviction. Rabia Chowdhury, a friend and advocate for Syed, said she's relieved by the judge's decision.
26 years it has taken us to get here where we can finally know that Adnan will not die in prison. And frankly, that was my objective from 1999, is to make sure that he was able to live some part of his life outside of prison and fight until we got him there.
11 News reached out to the Lee family's attorney for his perspective. The statement reads in part, quote, "Absolutely nothing changes the fact that Mr. Syed remains convicted of first-degree premeditated murder due to overwhelming direct and circumstantial evidence. We hope that one day Mr. Syed can summon the courage to take responsibility for his crime and express sincere remorse," end quote. Current Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates issued a statement saying the following about the ruling. He called it a, quote, "just outcome for a tragedy that took the life of a young woman whose family is forever altered. I hope the Lee family can find peace and healing in the aftermath of this challenging experience." Now, Syed's case also brought national attention to Maryland's Juvenile Restoration Act, or JRA. Artur Yorgi sat down with a legal expert to get his take on the court's decision.
Yeah, Jason, I am being joined by David Jaros. He is with the University of Baltimore School of Law. He's a law professor, and we are going to dive into a little bit of the ruling, Thursday's ruling on Adnan Syed's case. So, David, we were talking earlier. He spent 23 years in prison, and now he is a free man. What's your reaction to that? Because I know you've been following this case.
Well, I think this is a really significant turn, but part of what's interesting about this case is the reason he is out is because there was a petition under the Juvenile Restoration Act. And this is an act that came into effect in 2021 that was really significant here in Maryland, which was the recognition that some young people are convicted of very terrible crimes, and that after 20 years of incarceration or more, they may be very different people, and they may be rehabilitated. And when they can demonstrate they are no longer a threat to public safety and they've rehabilitated themselves, then it may be appropriate to let them be free.
Keywords there, no longer a threat to public safety. That is what the judge's ruling was on Thursday. So they had said that really came down, that was the final factor, because the JRA, there's 11 factors that the court's ruling, they have to rule on and decide on. The first 10, they were evenly split, but that last one was that they decided he was no longer a threat to the public. Do you agree with that decision? What's your thought process with that and just the JRA's 11 factors in general?
In many ways, this was the perfect case for the JRA. And this case is incredibly unusual. It's had such a strange path. But as part of that path, because there was a question as to whether his original conviction, there was a constitutional infirmity, he had actually been released. So this is a rare occasion where someone actually had a chance to be out and demonstrate that they were rehabilitated and that they were not a threat to the community. So he's been out living among this, serving in a variety of public service roles, actually I believe teaching at Georgetown University and involved in classes there, serving in his mosque. And so this is someone who had a rare opportunity not only to not get infractions while he was inside and do well there, but actually a chance to prove that he was doing well on the outside.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out, as you say that there, what is the difference between, he still has this conviction under his belt, but he is a free man now. Can you kind of just walk us
Absolutely.
through what that means?
So under the JRA, this gives an opportunity to someone who was less than 18 years old when they were convicted, when they committed the alleged crime, actually I should say, that after 20 years in jail, they can demonstrate using these 11 factors that they have sufficiently rehabilitated themselves, are no longer a threat, such that they should be resentenced. And so he was resentenced to time served, but that does not mean he doesn't have a conviction on his record. There was a separate motion to try and vacate his conviction. The current state's attorney, Ivan Bates, withdrew his support for that motion. So that motion was set aside. So this was just about whether or not his sentence would be to time served.
Is this justice?
I think that's a deep, hard question, but I would say actually the Juvenile Restoration Act is a huge step forward for recognizing that people may do very terrible things when they're young, and that doesn't mean we need to throw away the key for the rest of their lives. So I don't know if I'm in a position to say what's ultimately just, but I think there is a strong argument that when someone is no longer a threat to society, when they've served their time without having infractions, getting an opportunity to then rebuild a life at a much older person is entirely appropriate.
Good work from Tori Yorgi. Thank you. Jaros shared with us the case is probably done. The Lee family cannot step in and ask for an appeal to this sentence. So what happens now? In the next 2 weeks, the court will hold a hearing to formally sentence Saeed. That sentence, as we know, will be time served plus 5 years probation. And 11 News has been covering Saeed's case from the very beginning. We have an in-depth timeline of the case on our website, WBALTV.com, and the WBAL TV app. Still ahead on 11 TV Hill, the Trump administration has until tomorrow to pay off its debts to USAID partners. It's part of the fight to keep the agency's lights on. Coming up, we sit down with Loyola University professor John Doherty. The crucial work he says could be lost to funding cuts.
These are really tough times for people that gave their whole lives to serving their fellow Americans.
Plus, massive layoffs looming at the Social Security Administration, why former SSA Commissioner Martin O'Malley thinks the agency's payment system is on the verge of collapse. That's when we come back.